Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store.
And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is...
Rye the Movie Guy. And this week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we go to war. One particular war, actually.
We do every week, though, right?
Not Cinema. This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, we're focusing on the Vietnam War.
I was going to ask, how do you say it? Do you say Vietnam or Vietnam?
I usually actually say Vietnam, but I actually go back and forth sometimes. When I'm reading it out loud, I'll say Vietnam. Sometimes when I'm talking in discussion, I'll say Vietnam. I go both. You?
Same. I think when I'm talking about the country, I say Vietnam. But when I'm discussing the war in particular, I say Vietnam, which is the more, I guess, colloquial accent on the word. And especially when you shorten it to just apostrophe N-A-M, I'm not saying Nam, I'm saying Nam. It just sounds a little bit more aggressive and like the comic book Nam, you know? But that's me. That's me.
We're going to be covering our top 5 Vietnam movies because we have a review that ties in with.
We sure do. We are covering Spike Lee's new joint, Da 5 Bloods.
Here to help us do that review of Da 5 Bloods and talk Vietnam movies, we have a great guest who's going to be joining us.
John Hammerle is back for his umpteenth time on the show. I think this might be 5 or 6. He has also hosted the show once. He's the writer over at Hammervision, along with his wife. They review movies, television for a decade now, or at least getting on there.
Unbelievable. Always a good time to talk to John. Matt, in honor of Da 5 Bloods, in which the characters, one small little theme going on in the movie is that they're going back to Vietnam looking for these gold bars that were left behind. Mm-hmm. So in honor of that, we're going to play gold movie trivia, yourself versus John. How's that sound?
It sounds great. I'll try to do my best gold member impersonation.
We also are going to give you a 1-minute review, maybe about a minute. We'll spend time on maybe one of the worst movies of the year. And actually, John saw this movie, so he'll discuss that. And it's Spike Lee month. We continue celebrating the great director Spike Lee, obviously because he has Da 5 Bloods out, which we'll be talking about in just a minute. So let's start there with a Spike Lee fact.
All right, Ryan, this week's Spike Lee fact. For the epic Malcolm X, Spike Lee requested a $33 million budget, a reasonable sum considering its size and scope, but much more than his previous budgets. Warner Brothers offered $20 million for a 2-hour, 15-minute film, plus $8 million from Largo Entertainment for the foreign rights. When the film went $5 million over budget, Lee kicked in most of his salary, but the financiers shut down post-production. Lee then went public with his battles, raised funds from celebrity friends including Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, and Bill Cosby to regain control of the project. After a positive screening of a rough cut, Warner Brothers kicked in more funds to finish the film. And actually, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Got a little bonus fact for you here, Ryan. With a total of 3 hours, 21 minutes, and 58 seconds of screen time, Denzel Washington's performance in this movie is the longest to ever be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in a Leading Role.
You're telling me he was on screen for 3 hours and 21 minutes in that movie? That's basically the entire runtime. That's amazing.
He did play Malcolm X in the movie Malcolm X, so it makes sense.
And yet he lost the Oscar to Al Pacino in Scent of a Woman in one of the biggest gaffes the Academy's ever made.
The Academy is still catching up, but I'm glad that Malcolm X came out. It's an important film.
Yeah, it's one of Spike's masterpieces. Thinking about it, I actually think Spike Lee probably, in my opinion, has 3 masterpieces. Do the Right Thing. Nobody can argue that. And then I think Malcolm X and Black Klansman, in my opinion, are 3 masterpieces in his filmography.
I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. I think Black Klansman might be a little higher on the pedestal than it deserves to be, only because it's probably so fresh in our memories. But Spike, I don't know. I'd have to pull up an entire list of his filmography. I bet you there's another one that's even better than Black Klansman.
Maybe The 25th Hour. Some people love this movie.
Hey, maybe The Five Bloods. We're going to talk about it.
I know. And yes, here to talk about it, we bring in our guest. As you mentioned, Matt, he's been on the show several times. He's actually filled in as a co-host one time. John Hammerle, welcome back to Cinemajaw.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Ryan. It is great to be back. Good to see your faces. And I think this is the fifth time, so I'm ready for that five-timers jacket. Like,
nice.
Ready to wear it.
We got a T-shirt, actually. It's not quite a crushed velvet jacket, but, they do look handsome.
I bet it does. Get that Cinemajaw logo on it. I'll wear that everywhere.
All right, buddy. Next time when we can get together face-to-face, I'll make sure you get it.
Okay. That'd be great.
So how has the quarantine life been treating you, John?
Quarantine life has been good. Working from home part-time. Still going to in the office. I work at True Value Company. So we've been deemed an essential business. So the office has been open at headquarters. So I go in 2 days a week. And what's been clutch is a bottle of wine and the hot tub in the backyard. It's like a mini vacation every night. I literally have gone in the hot tub every night just to kind of unwind and
that is awesome. I could
down.
Yeah, I mean, just sitting there with a bottle of wine. Do you like prop a TV up on one side of the hot tub and kick back and watch a movie while you're in there?
No, but I did just get a projector and a screen for backyard cinema. So it's a 100-inch screen and a boombox to play the 5.0 surround sound. So yeah, nice. I think I'm going to be set to watch it in the hot tub.
That's awesome.
Question on that, because I actually I don't have a backyard. I got a deck here in the city, but I do a projector with a screen out on the deck. The boombox, was that separate from the projector?
Yeah, it was it's like a DeWalt Tough Guy music. It's like for construction sites, but it's got great sound. So you just hook that sucker up and you're off to the races.
It was one of those like rubberized edges with the like steel grill speakers, one of those bad boys.
Yeah, the kind that you can just drop and it'll still play, or you can just throw it off a building and it'll probably still, give you the music and tunes with the sound that you want.
Nice.
That is great. Behind the scenes here, John, I'm always giving Matt a tough time to watch more movies other than the ones that we're reviewing on the Jaw each week. And he's a family guy. He's got a couple kids, so I know he's got things going on. But you have a couple of kids, and I follow you on Letterboxd. You're logging in. If I saw it correctly, I think this year you're around, or maybe even over 200 films on Letterboxd.
That's probably right. Yeah, I've been in beast mode on Letterboxd lately.
So you're just plowing through movies. It's a constant. Sometimes you're watching 3 movies in a day.
Yeah, with no summer movie season and a sort of lack of regular new movies that are worth seeing, I've taken to watching a lot of the summer movies of yore. So like from the 80s and 90s blockbusters and getting a nostalgia fix that way. But so I'm watching a lot of those. And yeah, I do watch at least 10 a week, I would say. So It may not be 2 or 3 a night, but I'm cranking through a good portion of
Do you jump around sometimes where, say, you watch, a Mission Impossible movie, and because it had Tom Cruise, the next movie you jump onto like a Tom Cruise or maybe the director's crossover? Do you do stuff like that?
Yep. So like with The Five Bloods coming out, we rewatched and also with all the protests and police brutality, we watched Do the Right Thing recently again. And then I went on iTunes and I saw that Mo Better Blues was $4.99 on iTunes, so I bought it. I haven't seen that one yet. That's a Spike Lee one I've missed. But you get in those trends where you'll be like, okay, I'll watch a couple Spike Lee, and then I watched, with the summer blockbusters, I put on Lethal Weapon 2 the other day. For some reason, now I'm in not to condone his behavior, but a Mel Gibson kick, where I put on Conspiracy Theory the other night, and I was thinking about putting on Maverick in a couple days. So yeah, you do fall into those, I guess, trends as you go along.
And you're still writing over at Hammervision?
Yeah, certainly still writing. Took a little break before this year, but I've come back, and obviously not. I go to the theaters a ton, and I haven't been able to do that for the last 3 months. So the output isn't the same, but I'm still trying to see. Like I saw King of Staten Island and Artemis Fowl, which we can talk about. So I'm still trying to see the new stuff. Yeah,
good deal.
And write about it.
It is Spike Lee month here on Cinemajaw, so I do want to ask you your favorite Spike Lee film.
I mean, you have to say Do the Right Thing is probably his best, but I think my favorite is 25th Hour. I'm a big sucker for you have a limited amount of time to either set things right, or you're either going to die, or you have 24 hours to live, or like Meet Joe Black was kind of like that concept where you have 3 days to get your stuff in order before you go. And 25th Hour is an awesome example of that. And the cast is great, and it captures New York post 9/11 in a really unique and dynamic way that I think only Spike Lee as a New York citizen probably could, and touch that nerve at that point in time. For my money, it's my favorite of his works. Yeah,
that's one you don't hear mentioned probably often enough. Like I was saying earlier, he's got such a filmography. It's tough to just say these are his three best, because any of them could be. But I certainly agree. Do the Right Thing is definitely on that list.
Yeah, and like Inside Man, it's probably his most like Hollywood product, but that's like a perfect movie, and it captures a lot of that New York vibe, like the Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, where it's just like these are New Yorkers, and you're on the street scene with them, and he adds a lot of flavor to what would normally be kind of a generic mainstream Hollywood thriller.
No doubt. And that's another one with a great cast. It's got Jodie Foster and Clive Owen and Denzel. That's one I want to rewatch. So
agree.
Yeah, I think it's on Netflix right now. So I think they added a bunch of Spike Lee's after put out The Five Bloods.
Yeah, lots of retrospectives on Spike Lee going on right now.
So for the jawheads that want to read some of your reviews, follow you online, the best place to do so, John?
That's chicagonow.com /Hammervision. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd or Instagram, it's all at Hammervision.
Do it, jawheads.
So Matt, our review this week is The Five Bloods. It is just what we need right now. A new movie from Spike Lee. I mean that seriously. In light of recent events that have caused worldwide protests, the time is right for Spike to enlighten us with a new film. The Five Bloods is a story of 4 Black Vietnam veterans who returned to Vietnam for 2 reasons: to bring a friend back home and to find some gold that they hid there back in the 60s. Can Spike follow up the masterful Black Klansman with another high note in his career? Matt Kay, John, and I sat down and lit up this latest Spike Lee joint.
Black GI, is it fair to serve more than the white Americans that sent you here? Nothing is more confused than to be ordered into a war to die without the faintest idea of what's going on. I dedicate this next record to the soul brothers of the 1st Infantry Divisions. Be safe.
The Five Bloods opens with a montage of clips from the 60s. Most notably, Muhammad Ali talking about the Vietnam War and his refusal to fight. We meet the Bloods, 4 vets who are meeting in Ho Chi Minh. Their mission is to go into the jungle where they fought 42 years prior to find the remains of their squad leader, Norm, played by Chadwick Boseman in flashbacks, and to find a chest of gold bars they left behind during a battle. In the 1960s flashbacks, we see the gold was being sent by the U.S. government to people in the area as payment for their help in fighting the Viet Cong. However, once their chopper is shot down and a large-scale battle ensues, squad leader Norm talks about how the gold should actually go to African Americans due to the poor treatment they received from the U.S. government throughout history. Norm is killed, the area is bombed with napalm, and the treasure left behind. Back to present day, the 4 remaining Bloods, with the help of one of their sons, is going to attempt to navigate the terrain, find what they came for, and bring it all home. Spike Lee gives us a taste of both Apocalypse Now and The Treasure of Sierra Madre. Homages include Flight of the Valkyries and using the famous line, "We don't need no stinking badges." But if that was as deep as we got, it would be a failure. And thankfully, that's not the case. Spike Lee tackles a lot here. The most obvious is the unfair treatment of African Americans during the war. We get facts such as the black population of the U.S. at the time was 11%, yet they made up 33% of the troops fighting in Vietnam. One storyline involves one of the Bloods finding out he had a daughter with a woman when he was there for the war. The way these children and the mothers of these children were treated is very saddening. The highlight for me was the way Spike Lee correlated the Vietnam War with the fight for civil rights. One line in particular really hit me. It's given by Delroy Lindo's character. As he finds himself alone in the jungle, looking right at the camera, he says, "The U.S. government isn't going to kill me." There's even more to talk about, such as Spike's decision to use the same older actors in flashback scenes and the performances themselves. Matt, your take on The Five Bloods.
Ryan, Spike Lee is a master of the craft, as we've been discussing these past weeks, and I agree with everything you just said, particularly the performance from Delroy Lindo, which was Oscar-worthy. However, much of the journey feels a little slapdash, and the pacing for me was a slog. This could have used some tighter editing. The whole first hour and a half of the movie is just build-up. We meet the Bloods and discover their mission and means, and I have to admit, I found the situation frustratingly convenient for the characters and had a very hard time with my suspension of disbelief. It seems far-fetched that the U.S. and Vietnamese government would agree to send old men into the jungle unaccompanied to find the remains of a U.S. soldier, especially given the fact that they were on a payroll run when they were shot down and the gold was never recovered. That might just be a bridge too far for me. Also, the pacing is slow. I do applaud getting ample time to get to know these characters, but at a certain point, I was ready for action, and it was still a half hour away. There's also a telegraphing problem with the overuse of foreshadowing that ruined a surprise element for me. Like I saw it coming a mile away. I love the violence. There's a sentence you don't hear often, but war is disgusting, and Lee does not shy away from its atrocities. There are moments that will be hard for some viewers to stomach, but I really appreciated this authenticity. The last hour of this movie is truly amazing, as all the pieces that Spike has set on the board move into a checkmate position. Its deep social commentary borders on premonition, as this film has a lot of parallels with current events. The larger message that you mentioned, Rai, of how Black soldiers were treated both in war and at home is a topic that has not received its due attention. And for that reason, more than any other, despite its flaws, this is a great, important movie.
John?
I think I agree with both of you. I really liked it. It juggles a lot of genres and tones over the course of 2.5 hours, but at all times, it's like 100% a Spike Lee movie, which means it is a little clumsy in parts, and there is some elements that work better than others, but the passion behind it, behind the camera, and his kind of talent and geekiness in terms of film references, and he does a lot of theatricality, and some of it you're totally aware that you're watching a movie, and he knows that you're aware. He wants you to be kind of taken out of it. You know, he'll reference a person from history. One of the characters will reference a real life person, and then it'll cut to like stock footage of a photo of that person, and you're constantly being drawn in and out of the movie, and just the fact that he's using the older actors in the flashback scenes. You know, he's not using Martin Scorsese Irishman de-aging technology for them. It was kind of distracting, and then you're like, well, thematically it kind of makes sense, right? Like those guys have been, as soon as they left that war, their youth was shattered, and they're the old men they are now, who are kind of damaged by the war and suffering PTSD and never have really gotten over it or had the youth they thought they would. But Matt, to your point, having just watched King of Staten Island over the weekend too, which is like a 2.5 hour movie where nothing really happens, I thought The Five Bloods earned its 2.5 hours, and because there was so much to it and so many different layers and tonal shifts. I never really felt bored by it. And I mean, give Delroy Lindo the Oscar already, right? Like, he was amazing.
He was
fantastic. Yeah, he sure was. So talking about that choice to use these older actors in the flashbacks, the first time it happened, I just thought I wasn't seeing the de-aging done really well. Right? It's confusing. I'm like, oh, it almost looked like he just used the older actors in the flashback scenes. It was quick and it was sort of jarring. And then the second time I was like, what is going on here? Oh, this is Spike just doing one of his Spike-isms, if you will. And he's just going to go ahead and put these older actors in the flashback scenes. After a while, I didn't mind it at all. But I would say the second time I was still very confused, and then I was along for the ride.
I'm totally okay with it. I honestly think it was sort of an effect brought on by convenience, like not having to recast those roles or use any sort of special effects, but it works and it's fine. In fact, those are, 4 great actors, so why not use them to their fullest abilities,
Yeah, I mean, and if he had cast younger actors, it's so early in the movie too, you'd be like, okay, which one is Delroy Lindo and which one is, you'd be sussing that out the whole time, and this way you're just okay. Well, that's
yeah,
that's who it is.
That's who it is, and we got it.
Yeah, he also plays around with the aspect ratio, where he squeezes down the screen into that 4.3 ratio when we go into the Vietnam War flashback scenes, and I enjoyed that. There were some that actually, one in particular, where the aspect ratio literally changes right in front of you. It's not like a fade to black and come back. It literally is changing slowly right in front of you. I thought that was a great effect.
Yeah, it really gets you prepared mentally, and it's just cool looking too. And the filter, it's got a very like 70s filter on it at that point too. The grain on the film, it's a good effect, I think.
He's worked in this era before, right? The Vietnam War era. Black Klansman, I guess, is at least kind of set in the late Vietnam War era. So he knew what he was doing. Maybe he sort of trained for this moment of doing a true Vietnam movie. And you're right, when he shrinks down to that 60s TV style, it just sort of matches the images we're used to seeing from history of the war, the media images, which I honestly, you keep talking about. Some of those were really good, and some of those I think were a little too peppered in. What do you guys think? A couple of them were fine, but it starts to become like an episode of South Park when anytime one of the characters mentions a historical figure, they immediately cut to a photo of him. I think that was done a bit too much.
I enjoyed it, actually. I was along for the ride and actually looked forward to him because when we got to the point where at one time they're actually talking about an Olympic hurdler, and they're talking about, do you remember this so-and-so? I thought, don't even tell me they're going to show him. Like I was waiting for it to pop up just for that 1 second before it did. And bam, there was the picture of the person. So I enjoyed it. John, I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I mean, it's not subtle at all, right? But that's, again, that's kind of that's Spike Lee. He can be subtle when he wants to be, and also he can just hammer stuff home and elaborate on things that you don't need to see, but it just adds to the texture of the film, I think. And makes it adding his.
Yeah, and staying with that, adding to the texture of the film, you got this character who plays a radio DJ called Hanoi Hannah, who is used in a way to be able to express what's going on in the movie. And this was based on a real character that would come out and try to give propaganda against the U.S. soldiers that were fighting. And it reminded me of 2 characters we've seen in movies and the way it was done. One of them being a Spike Lee movie, which is the Samuel L. Jackson character in Do the Right Thing, but also the DJ in the movie The Warriors. Do you remember that they would have that DJ come on and say, this one goes out to the Warriors who are trying to get back? It reminded me a blend of those 2 things because she was actually talking right to the GIs, and I appreciated that. I liked it.
That's a great call. I definitely got the Do the Right Thing allusions, but the Warriors is spot on, man. Now that I think about it, yeah, for sure.
Did you guys have a problem with the foreshadowing? I mean, what I mentioned in my review, like I'm trying to dance around it because this is a shocking moment in the film, one of the more shocking moments when somebody gets injured. And
that sequence is the best in the movie, I think.
I agree, but it was so telegraphed. It was so, like, as soon as he meets the girl in the bar, the whole, from that point on until we get to the injury, I'm just waiting for that moment. Every step people are taking, I'm like, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen?
That's what Spike wanted. I think that's
really,
and especially. Oh yeah, and especially at the buildup of the moment, that tense scene where I think we all telegraph exactly what's going to happen, and we're waiting who it's going to be. We're not positive. I think that's what he wanted. He wanted us to be in on foreshadowing so that we were tense.
Okay, I'll accept that answer. I don't know if I agree, but I'll consider it on my next rewatch.
Oh, and then the follow-up. Come on, Matt. The follow-up of right after this, quote-unquote, as you put it, injury, then another character gets in a predicament, and I think that's what John's talking about, that entire sequence of trying to, help this guy who's the son. That I loved it. I thought that part was spectacular.
Yeah, and then I don't know, guys. And then it becomes just a very convenient way to get rid of characters we don't need anymore, like, oh, that just happened. One of the people it happens to is an expert in that particular thing. And I'm sorry if this sounds confusing to people who haven't seen the movie, but I don't want to ruin this. But right. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? Like, that person who finds this thing would have known. And really, is it that prevalent? I don't know. It seemed a little convenient. It seemed a little lazy.
I did. Well, it may be convenient. Yeah, I get that. But it didn't seem lazy to me. It seemed like it did further the story. And it added some stakes to the movie that were fine, that I didn't really see before then. It kind of, at that point, the movie kicks up to another level. And from then on out, it kind of sustains that and grows it and twists it. But that's kind of the lever that Spike pulls that kind of kicks the movie into another gear, I think.
I agree.
I agree with that. I agree
with that too.
I was good with it. Anything else that I'm missing here, Matt, that you wanted to highlight?
Fantastic performances throughout. I do think we're going to see an Oscar come out of this.
At least a nomination.
For sure. Delroy Lindo, there it is. I think we just saw a best actor performance in this movie. So,
You got a movie poster quote for me?
I do. Spike Lee examines today through a 40-year-old lens made in Vietnam.
Decent. I went with the movie we need right now.
Nice. How many Jaws you giving this?
I'm at 3 Jaws on this one.
Oh.
This is a 3-Jaw movie. I enjoyed it. I'm obviously recommending. Not top tier Spike for me. Not top tier, but
I'm shocked by that. I really am, man. I thought you would, especially based on your review, say 4 Jaws all the way. I'm with you. I don't think it's top tier Spike Lee, but I'm saying 3.5 Jaws because it's still, I know, right? That doesn't make sense, but I think the movie has a lot to say. There's a lot to unpack here. There's things said in this film that I don't think have been said before, certainly not in a coherent way. There are some problems along the way, but I think where we end up is it's more than the sum of its parts. So therefore 3.5 Jaws for me.
John,
I'm surprised at this. I thought it would go the other way. Your reviews. I'm with Matt. I give it 3.5 Jaws. I think it's a weird movie, a cool movie, and a uniquely Spike Lee movie, which is, I'm always down for that. And I think it's in the conversation for best movie so far this year.
I would say that. I've already seen it noted. We're getting away the halfway point, and I've seen some articles, and no argument. I mean, I gave it 3 Jaws, but if someone told me it was their favorite movie, I can appreciate that.
Same here.
Watching a movie like Da 5 Bloods and me and Matt bounce around ideas of a top 5, my first suggestion was top 5 swimming pool scenes for summer.
I mean, maybe we could have done hot tub scenes for John Hammerle,
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
But
Deuce Bigelow, number 1.
I do promise the Jawheads we are going to do favorite swimming pool scenes sometime during the summer. But no, it jumped at us that we had never really tackled Vietnam War, do a top 5 on it. Pretty obvious. So we throw it over to John here. Was this an easy list for you to come up with, or did you have a tough time narrowing it down to 5?
This was an easy list to identify 5 standard Vietnam movies that will probably be on everybody's list if you wanted to go that way. Challenge here was to dig into the margins and maybe play fast and loose with what we call a Vietnam film. And so I included in that, movies about Vietnam vets, even if it had no war elements to the movie.
I'm so glad that John was thinking outside of the box, because I went with the 5 most obvious choices.
I'm a little bit of both. A little bit of both over here.
John, you're getting to start it. What do you got sitting there at number 5?
All right, so I'm going to throw a big curveball here. I watched it last night as part of a regular movie club I'm in. It's called The Gay Deceivers from 1969.
What's it called?
The Gay Deceivers.
Okay.
And it was amazing. It is a sort of sitcom-y story about 2 gentlemen who pretend to be gay, 2 straight gentlemen who pretend to be gay to avoid going over to Vietnam. And so then they get into hijinks and they basically shack up in a house. And it's very, I mean, that movie couldn't be more 60s if it tried. They befriend the local gay couple next door, and it's very, its sexual politics are maybe a little risky for the time, but it was kind of the perfect thing to watch. And
was this an American film?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
American film. Yeah, it didn't have any name actors in it that I knew of going in, but it's a funny movie. It's very meme worthy. It's kind of corny and cheesy, but it fits the bill. The Gay Deceivers. If you're looking for like a laugh or like a cult classic that you maybe missed, it should fit the bill.
Nice. Is it streaming somewhere?
Amazon Prime. Or Tubi. You can watch it as well.
Right.
Ryan's jotting that down in his movie journal. I saw. Yep.
Let me go here, number 2, at my number 5 pick. And this gentleman came up earlier already on the jaw, and that was Mr. Mel Gibson. And he has a Vietnam movie under his belt. It came out in 2002 entitled We Were Soldiers. And it tells the story of one major battle in which American troops were surrounded by 4,000 Vietnamese. And we've seen Black Hawk Down, where they were surrounded and you couldn't get out of there. It's very much similar to that, but they were in the jungles of Vietnam. And it's based on the book that was written about it. Very realistic battle scenes. Huge cast in this movie. Looking at it was, besides Mel Gibson, you had Madeline Stowe, Greg Kinnear, Sam Elliott, Chris Klein, Kerry Russell, Barry Pepper. So it's got a large cast. It was one of the first times I saw that they talk about on the army base where the wives are staying. Something comes up where at that time the black wives that were waiting there as well couldn't go and wash their clothes in the same laundromat and room as the white wives.
Oh, Jesus.
And there's this moment where, other wives are saying, like, this is just ridiculous. I mean, their husbands are over there fighting just like ours. And it really was the first time I had ever, that was brought on to me, where I saw that and thought, oh my God, was this messed up? Because I don't know if I missed that in school or they weren't teaching it, but I don't know if it was brought up much. I remember being like shocked by it at the time of seeing this movie, that all this had happened. I'm still, when you think about it, it's just absolutely appalling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a travesty is what it is. All right, gents, that swings it over to me for my number 5. And this is a movie we have all certainly not only heard of, but probably seen multiple times. It's not terribly outside the box, but I don't think it's specifically a Vietnam movie, although Vietnam is central to the functioning of its plot. And I'm talking about Robert Zemeckis' Forrest Gump.
This is such a weak pick, Matt.
You would say that.
Weak. Oh.
It's
because
not
Obama, something bit me, and this is what we're talking about.
something bit me. You know what though? It's become such a cliche, and all of the Gump-isms that we quote endlessly. But just like Austin Powers, how it permeates the zeitgeist until we're sort of like sick on it and we start to hate it. But there's a reason it got to that level, because it's a freaking masterpiece front to back. Is it cheesy by today's standards, looking through the lens of today? Yes, it is very cheesy. And I feel bad for all the people that work at Bubba Gump's, the restaurant, and have to watch this movie on a loop, because as good as it is, no movie should be watched on a loop. That just ruins anything for you. But Forrest Gump is a movie I watched quite a bit, and I can put it on right now, still enjoy it. Tom Hanks, come on. And yes, the Vietnam scenes are very authentic for what this is, which is kind of a light comedy of a movie. But, you know, they don't shy away from some of the violence of war. I think it was done very well.
I will give you two of my favorite scenes in that movie do directly deal with the Vietnam War. One of them is when Bubba is dying, and he says, if I would have known this was the last thing I was going to say to Bubba, I would have said something else. But what he said was, you've been shot, which is pretty great. And then also the protests against the Vietnam War at Washington Monument, and they're there, and he comes on and someone pulls the microphones, and he's going on and on and on, and no one can hear anything. And they finally plug the microphones in. All he has to say is, and that's all I have to say about the Vietnam War. I do love that moment, you know?
The whole movie's filled with great moments.
It kind of created the shorthand for Vietnam too, like, right? Like using Fortunate Son whenever a helicopter is going by. Like, I feel like every movie after that, and maybe even before Forrest Gump, but I always associate it with Forrest Gump. Like, they just go back to the same songs and the same, you know, in the same format when there's a helicopter, you know, like every visuals are matched with those songs. And Forrest Gump kind of set the template for that shorthand.
I agree.
To go
into our fours we go.
I'm taking a different path here too. My number 4 is Sylvester Stallone in First Blood.
Oh man. Wow.
I love this pick. I love it.
This is, again, not a Vietnam War movie, but John Rambo is definitely a Vietnam War veteran, and he is dealing with some fallout from that tour of duty. This one sticks with me because you have such an idea of what Rambo is based on the sequels, but you watch that first movie, and to see Stallone's acting chops towards the end, where he breaks down in tears in the shed, is just, it's awesome, and it sticks with me. And more than any Vietnam War movie showing all the combat, sometimes a scene like that can do more to tell you about what the impact of Vietnam War on people more than anything else, I think. So
First Blood mentioned here, and I will say it's interesting that his two big series, Rambo and Rocky, the first installment in both those are so much more serious than the rest of the series, and the way people view those characters and the way they became almost caricatures of themselves. But those first two installments, both Rocky and First Blood, completely different, serious tones.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like in First Blood is like a meditation on PTSD, before I believe that term was even a thing. And then Rambo, the second one, is like total 80s schlock war glorification with like rocket launchers and like rippling chest muscles and, you know, totally different direction.
Arrowheads that could blow up a building.
Right. And that knife, that Rambo knife. Come on, guys. We all had one of those in the 80s.
A lot of body oil, too. Yeah. I mean, geez. Listening.
And a montage where you're putting the knife in your boot and you're tying the headband just so. Love that.
Murdoch, I'm coming for you. Oh, it was great. All right. Swings it over to my number 4. I can't even follow up First Blood. I go documentary with my number 4 pick. This one came out in 2003 and is entitled The Fog of War.
Ken Burns?
No, not Ken Burns. Ken Burns made one just recently entitled The Vietnam War. Not on my list for
a very creative title there, Ken.
That's a 10-part series. I do recommend it. But The Fog of War came out in 2003, and the main person that they interview here is Robert McNamara, who is regarded as the architect of the Vietnam War. And he was interviewed for 20 hours for this documentary. And in 2003, the U.S. was just at the start of the Iraq War. And so the movie really is trying to get the message across of what can we learn, what history lesson can we learn, like what not to do going into Iraq so that we don't have another Vietnam on our hands. Fascinating movie. And to be able to just have that exposure to Robert McNamara, who was so responsible for so much of the U.S. actions in Vietnam, is in itself a great thing to be able to go back and watch. Good movie to like show students. The Fog of War. Big fan.
I saw that on a Saturday night. I remember this because we went out with friends to dinner to a Mexican restaurant, and I had maybe 3 or 4 margaritas and was pretty loaded. And then we went to go, we were all like having fun. And then we went to see The Fog of War, and it was not a good drunk movie to sit through. It's a very sobering film, shall we say.
It is. Yep.
I got to see this one. I have not. Sounds like an amazing documentary. As you know, I'm a big fan. All right, that swings it back over to me. And at number 4, I have a pick that is going to piss off Ryan the Movie Guy. I'll be honest, I think I put it on the list mostly just to piss off Ryan, but I do think it's a very interesting take on the Vietnam War. The film itself isn't all about the war, certainly not even mostly about the war. But again, just like Forrest Gump, the war is very pivotal to the entire arc of the plot. And I'm talking about The Watchmen.
Yeah.
It didn't piss me off.
Oh,
I'm not,
damn it. I really wanted it to piss you off.
I don't love this pick by any means, but it doesn't piss me off.
Here's the Zack Snyder.
Zack Snyder, yes. Yeah. Which, by the way, still getting really stoked for the Snyder cut of Justice League. We'll see what that's all about. But The Watchmen, first of all, a lot of people said that this was unadaptable. Alan Moore had given up on movies altogether after the horrible League of Extraordinary Gentlemen debacle. But somehow Snyder did capture the essence of the graphic novel. And what it has to do with Vietnam is it posits the question, what if we had won Vietnam? Which nobody really stops to ever think about. What if Nixon had stayed in power? We won the Vietnam War. What would America look like today? And by today, I mean the 1980s, which is when the modern times of this movie is set. And it's a completely different country. Things have really bent toward right-wing, even fascist ideals. The superheroes, who watches The Watchmen, very relevant to the stuff we're living through today, honestly. It's a good movie that I don't think it gets as much credit as it deserves. And that's all I have to say about that.
I only saw it the one time when it came out in the theater. I didn't hate the movie. I'd never read the graphic novel, and I remember being a little confused by the movie and you explaining, well, you didn't read the graphic novel, and me point being that I'm here to see the movie and I shouldn't have to read something to enjoy the film. But that said, I would rewatch the movie, and maybe I will.
Yeah, I guess the issue there is like the new HBO show has kind of eclipsed it in terms of quality and exploring the themes that are at play in that material. I don't know. I remember liking the visuals of Snyder's Watchmen, but not much else about it.
Interesting. And the HBO series is pretty good. You've seen it, John?
Yeah, the HBO show is fantastic. I think anybody who is a fan or not a fan of Snyder's Watchmen should see the new show. I think it's great.
I'm in.
All right, swings us into our threes. Here we go.
All right, number 3, another PTSD Vietnam War vet flick. I'm going with Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, yes.
From 1990. This is a Tim Robbins flick. Adrian Lyne directed it. It's sort of a trippy thriller about Tim Robbins plays a Vietnam War vet who lost his child and is going through several delusions and trying to figure out what's real, what's not, what's he subjected to in Vietnam, and what's sticking with him and what's fractured. And I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember being very taken with it. And I think they remade it somewhat recently. I didn't catch the remake of it, but
can we throw that in the jaw box?
I'm looking at. I will look that up for sure. In fact, I have never seen Jacob's Ladder, and I saw it pop up when I was doing my research, and didn't know if it was good or bad. And it coming up on John's list, I'm going to write this one down in my journal as well.
Well, not only is it good, Ryan, I will be honest and say that Jacob's Ladder is my number one pick. I'm gonna
stop the presses.
We can talk about it now, and I'll throw out a sub at number one because I have a few honorables. Jacob's Ladder is not only good, you should absolutely see it. I think it is superb. It's a precursor to that sort of tonal horror where it's not about the horrors that you see. It's about that creeping sense of dread that slowly builds throughout the movie. And just the clever plot devices in the writing, the way the story comes across and what is and isn't real. And then where it leaves you, I know for a fact you're a big fan of this type of ending, Ryan. You're going to love Jacob's Ladder. It's very fluid. I think it makes a point as to what the ending is, where Jacob ends up, but it is open somewhat to interpretation. It's a little loose at the end as to exactly what happened to him in the war and where he is today.
So we don't know if he's on the top of the ladder or the bottom of the ladder at the end.
Or he could be somewhere in the middle, you know?
Dead in the middle.
Can't wait.
Not a tidy ending there. No.
I will check that one out. I will check it out. My number 3, heavy hitter here, 1989, Oliver Stone's second time he visited the Vietnam War, this time casting Tom Cruise in the title role as Ron Kovac. I'm speaking of Born on the 4th of July. At the time I saw this, I remember I was actually confused on why Tom Cruise would be in a serious movie. I mean, now I think of Tom Cruise actually as a pretty damn great actor, but at the time, he hadn't had such a meaty role like this where he was going to play this guy who comes back from Vietnam. He's paralyzed from his chest down. And the other thing I think too, again, I'm a kid when I'm seeing this movie and not really understanding all the complications that went on with the Vietnam War. We go through school, and when we're kids, we're brought up to think that, you know, America does only the best things. And the whole idea of watching that movie and him coming back to this country and feeling alienated when he's back here, like he betrayed the country and there's people aren't on his side. I just didn't understand it. And I wanted to know why I didn't understand it. So it led me to ask more questions to like my dad and teachers and such. What a performance. Earned Tom Cruise his first Oscar nomination of his career. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth a spin. Born on the 4th of July.
Absolutely.
I like that one. Yeah. And Cruise is awesome, but I still have an issue with like his wig work in that movie. Like his mustache, it just looks fake. I don't know. I mean, he's so good in that all of his accoutrement is working actively against his performance in terms of believability. I don't know.
Spend some of that big budget on a better hairpiece, Ali.
Yeah.
Matt, you're number 3?
It's funny, as soon as you started saying Oliver Stone, this is one of the ones that I think most people are thinking has to be on this list. And it is 1986's Platoon. Charlie Sheen, I mean, Tiger Blood dude himself at one time almost seemed like he was going to be like a real serious actor. And I think his career turned in the late 80s, early 90s to more comedic fare, and then he became the Charlie Sheen we know and love today. But in Oliver Stone's Platoon, he is a stone-faced killer and terrifying at times in that movie. You know, it's funny because this one falls right in between First Blood and Rambo, right? As far as its tone, because we did get video games and we did get some pop culture-y adaptations of this, but at the same time, it was pretty sober, realistic view of the war, but it also had that machine guns, sort of big muscle guys. I don't know. So maybe it's the best of both worlds in a war movie. Certainly harrowing. I don't know. I like it. I think it was very effective as far as showing the horrors of war.
Yeah, I think that's a hugely influential movie. You know, you can trace like Private Ryan back to what Stone was doing in Platoon, and I think it kind of set what a modern war film is, even though you're looking in the past.
Yeah.
How you capture that on film is right there in Platoon for sure.
Good pick. Knew that one would come up. Into our 2s we go.
I definitely had Tommy Cruise in Born on the 4th of July, but I'm going to skip that since we talked about it. And I would just say the first half of this movie should go in here, but I guess we're going to include all of it. I'm going Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket from 1987. Again, this is one of those undeniable Vietnam War flicks. But again, for me, the actual Vietnam War component of that movie is less effective than the first half in the army barracks and preparing to go to war. Arlie Ermey as the drill sergeant is fantastic.
Oh yes, yes he is.
He's so good, and he would play that character in every film he appeared in from then on out. Even in like Toy Story.
He has a TV show now too.
Well, he passed away now, didn't he? Pass away?
Throw in the jaw box. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Throw that in the jaw box.
But yeah, the Vincent D'Onofrio is awesome in that. I mean, for me, that movie, the first half of it is as good as anything Kubrick's made, and then the second half feels like a generic sort of Vietnam War flick. But
you're right. I agree with that. The boot camp scenes are particularly, like we were talking about with the drill sergeant, are particularly rough, especially the scene in the bathroom and everything. That's a part of war that we don't see. People skip over the boot camp part, but it's important. So I liked it.
That's one I've been wanting to rewatch for a long time. Swings it over to my number 2, and continuing with the heavy hitters here. They're going to be big ones when we're talking number 2 and number 1. And mine could be anybody's number 1. 1979, Francis Ford Coppola's epic Apocalypse Now. And obviously referenced in The Five Bloods, a film very much like John, you were saying about some of the music that's used in Forrest Gump. Same with Flight of the Valkyries. I mean, as soon as you use that, you think, oh, it's Vietnam. It's a reference to Apocalypse Now. And I have on DVD Apocalypse Now Redo, which is even a longer version of the film, if you can believe that. The chaos, I think the tone, when you watch the movie, you come away with just the insane chaos of what was Vietnam. Of course, the horror that we get. The
horror, yeah.
At the end. But it's a great one. It's not something that I can go back and watch once a year or once every 5 years, but maybe once every 10 to 15 years, I watched it all the way through, and I'm like, man, they couldn't even make a movie like this anymore. It's a time capsule of a film as far as filmmaking goes as well.
Right. We said earlier how a couple of the films had sort of set the lexicon of how we make movies about Vietnam, but I don't think there's any one that has cemented the iconography of what we close our eyes and see when you think about the Vietnam War more than Apocalypse Now. I mean, you practically see the cover art to this movie, you know, the sun with a helicopter in front of it. Like, find me a movie about Vietnam that doesn't have one of those helicopters.
And Marlon Brando's bald head. I agree.
Well, maybe that's that part.
Instantly, that's what I think about.
Yeah, that movie's undeniable. I mean, that could be number 1 on anybody's list, and it probably should be.
Absolutely. That swings it back to me for my number 2. And in all honesty, it was Full Metal Jacket, but that's okay because I get to sub one in, which is an absolute gem. Are you guys familiar with Bat 21?
I've never seen it.
Oh, really? Okay. It's I'm not familiar with the director, but it's Gene Hackman and Danny Glover. All right. Gene Hackman gets shot down behind enemy lines in Vietnam, and he's, you know, got whatever equipment he has, and one of those things is a shortwave radio, and he's talking to Danny Glover, who's trying to help him get past the VC back to friendly forces, right, to save his life, essentially. So he's got to camp out in the jungle. He's all alone. The Viet Cong are surrounding him, and he's trying to move and get into position, and all the while he's also sort of losing his mind, but this radio is his lifeline. And it's almost like a buddy story between these two. It's a really good survival tale that I think gets overlooked quite a bit. And Gene Hackman, man, he's a heavy hitter.
Oh yeah, is that from the 80s? Bat 21?
Yeah, 1988, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of misplaced in that era because, again, that's when we had those, guys ripping their shirts off with a bandana around their head, shooting machine guns. And this is a tonal Vietnam movie. It's, not as cerebral as an Apocalypse Now, but it's a little bit more of a thinking man's journey of survival. It's good.
I'll write that one down as well.
You
Good
should.
picks.
You would love this one.
All right, here it is, our number one picks. John.
Again, I tried to avoid some of the obvious ones, and I guess I could say one, but I'm guessing you're probably going to get to it for your number one. So I will go with my favorite Vietnam War veteran character that's ever been shown on film, and that would be John Goodman's Walter in The Big Lebowski.
Yes.
I guess that would be, it feels like sacrilege to say that's my favorite number one Vietnam War movie, and it probably is, but I'm going to throw it in here just to stay away from the obvious. And Walter is one of the great comic characters, and his experience in Vietnam is essential to everything he says and does, and his whole belief system in The Big Lebowski. So pour one out for Walter, my favorite Vietnam War veteran.
Nice. Swings it to my number one, and I do have that heavy hitter, that the elephant in the room we have not talked about yet. 1978 Best Picture winner, The Deer Hunter, is my number one pick. I've talked about this numerous times on Cinemajaw. I love when there's classic films that I haven't seen that everybody talks about, and then you finally get that chance to watch the movie, and it completely lives up to your expectations and all the stuff that you had heard. Because let's be honest, so many times somebody could be a buddy of yours builds up a movie, and then you're all excited to see it, and they sit down and you're like, it really wasn't that good. So when you get a classic where I've heard about The Deer Hunter for 10 plus years, people talking about it, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to finally sit down and watch this damn movie. And then to be blown away and say, oh, well, yeah, it's one of the best movies of all time. Literally incredible. And when they finally get to the Russian roulette scene, everybody, if you haven't seen this, knows of and have heard, pay homage to and reference to, and then to finally see it and how tense it is and how dark it is and just disturbing it is, and it completely works. Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, it's epic. It's epic. Hunter, my number one.
Great movie. And the first hour of it is a wedding, right? All wedding. You're like, this is a Vietnam War movie, right? You're going.
But I love that idea that we get to sort of see three, regular guys that are going to go over Vietnam, and war is going to change the rest of their lives. I love that whole setup.
I agree. The movie is central. I mean, it's basically built around that Russian roulette scene and everything that happens in the POW camp, right? The whole movie sort of pivots on that one experience that these characters have. It's a scene that I've returned to a lot, not because it's particularly enjoyable to watch, but when we build these lists week after week, Deer Hunter does fit into a lot of niches that we cover on Cinemajaw. So I've watched it again and again, and it's one of the greatest scenes ever filmed, I think. It's certainly up there. It's just as tense as you say, Ryan. It's an amazing movie.
Matt, we leave number one to you. I hate when we do this on Cinemajaw. It always makes me nervous, but you got the number one.
All right. Well, it should make you nervous. My number one, as I mentioned earlier, was Jacob's Ladder. I think that the movie is absolutely fantastic. And outside of Shawshank Redemption, certainly my favorite Tim Robbins movie. And he's got a lot of good ones, so that's saying something. But if I have to sub it out, and we're talking Vietnam, I really think this belongs on the list. Robin Williams, Good Morning, Vietnam.
There you go.
Good pick. Good pick. I'm glad this got mentioned.
It's a bit of a lighter take, right? But it does at least put its toe into the political flavor of the times. Robin Williams' performance is fantastic. I think this is when this was late 80s, I think, so his star was certainly established, but he was still on that meteoric climb that, would see him become a household name. And this might have been the movie that did it, honestly. I mean, certainly he was somewhat of a household name before, but really superstar status after this one. It's funny, it's touching, harrowing because of the subject matter. It's got some romance too. Good movie.
It was a big hit too, and I think it established Williams as like a respectable actor that
Right.
The Academy could honor, and that opened the door to like Dead Poets Society and him kind of threading the needle between the comedy and the drama, and even when it tipped over more into drama, I think certainly Dead Poets and even Good Morning Vietnam, it's not super funny, even though he has funny stuff to do in it.
Agreed.
Any honorable mentions? I know we've mentioned a lot here. The only one I have is Rescue Dawn, which I had talked about prior a few weeks ago. That was my only one.
Does Tropic Thunder count as a Vietnam War movie?
We're gonna X that.
I don't know what war they're fighting in, and I know it's not real. It's a movie, but it strikes me as it has all the iconography of Vietnam, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I think so. Yeah, they're in the rice paddies and stuff. Yeah.
And then I thought the Post, Steven Spielberg's movie about the Pentagon Papers. That's a off the cuff.
That's a damn good pick.
Candidate. Yeah.
All of my honorables have been discussed and mentioned, Rye. How about you?
Okay. Yeah, like I said, Rescue Dawn, and then Casualties of War. Remember this one with Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn? It was sort of like another take on like Platoon. I don't know if it was good. I know I saw it back in the day, but I had it written down.
Yeah, it's almost like a Red Dawn feel to it, right?
I can't remember. Yeah.
Brian De Palma movie.
It is De Palma. Yeah, it is De Palma. I can't remember the movie that well, though.
It was a pretty generic, I think, war pick.
If we missed your favorite Vietnam War movie and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet, or you can always email us, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have Hollywood headlines, a review of possibly the worst movie of the year, and gold movie trivia. Matt Cavers, John, stick with us.
This week on Cinemajaw, in honor of our continuing celebration of Spike Lee, we bring you this performance by Samuel L. Jackson as the DJ in Do the Right Thing.
Wake up! Wake up, wake up, wake up! Up you wake, up you wake, up you wake, up you wake! This is Mr. Senior Love Daddy, your voice of choice, the world's only 12-hour strong man on the air, here on We Love Radio 108 FM, the last on your dial, but first in your hearts, and that's the truth. Root. Here I am I here? You know it, you know. This is Mr. Senior Love Daddy doing the nasty to your ears to the nasty. Eyes only play the platters that matter, the matters they platter. And that's the Root.
From the heart of Bed-Stuy, you're listening to We Love Radio.
Doing the yin and the yang, the hip and the hop, the stupid fresh thing, the flippity flop. I have today's forecast for you. Hot! The color for today is black. That's right, black, so you can absorb some of these rays and save that heat for winter. So you want to get on out there, wear that black, and be involved. Also, today's temperature is going to rise.
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with John Hammerle. He writes over at Hammervision. Again, John, for the jawheads that want to follow you online, read your reviews, the best place to do so is?
chicagonow.com/Hammervision or at Hammervision on Letterboxd.
I know the jawheads can't see you, audio podcast, obviously, but you're on Zoom here, and we can see behind you many movie posters. Do you have one poster in particular that's your favorite, or do you collect posters in any way?
I switch them out. I do have a lot down here. I recently added Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping to the wall, which is one of my favorite comedies of the last decade. But yeah, I've got a lot of 80s Spielberg directed or produced stuff down here. Like right behind me, you got Raiders, Back to the Future, Empire Strikes Back, Mission Impossible 3, Few Good Men, the classics.
Yeah, the good
awesome
stuff.
So you're rotating the posters. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I got these frames that just snap in and out, and when you just want to mix up the decor, It's an easy fix to do.
How many would you say you own total?
Probably like 30.
Okay. That's not a hell of a lot, but that's still respectable. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't put all of them up. But I've been buying like the Mondo posters from Mondo down in Texas. And they'll have like, select prints. They only do like 400 of them. And then they'll sell them online at like 10 a.m. And you have 2 seconds to decide to get it if you can get in. Otherwise, they sell out quickly. So a bunch of Marvel. Matt, you would like it. It's all like Endgame, Infinity War, Homecoming, Black Panther. They're up on the walls too.
Now I know what to get you for your birthday, John.
There you go. I'll take it.
Matt, before we get to trivia and before we get to Hollywood headlines and a review of possibly the worst movie of the year, we threw a couple items into the jaw box. Let's open up that jaw box.
What's your pleasure, Mr. Cotton?
The box.
We got a box! Oh, what's in the box?
All right, Matt. The two items that we had here. One was Jacob's Ladder. Was there a remake made? Yes, 2019.
Wow.
There was a remake. Poor reviews. So I guess stick with the original. Isn't that what they always say?
Not always, but yeah, in this case.
The other one was the actor R. Lee Emery from Full Metal Jacket. Is he alive or dead? How morbid, Matt.
It was your question.
Yeah, he did expire April 15th, 2018. He passed away.
He was a great guy, man. I loved his work on television. Even though he played that one character pretty much his entire career, he played it quite well. So he'll be missed.
You guys ever see The Frighteners?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think he's playing literally the exact same character from Full Metal Jacket in that movie.
That's right. That's right, man. I forgot about that. Holy crap! It's been a while since I've seen The Frighteners. Great movie.
Robert Zemeckis, your buddy from Forrest Gump.
That's Frighteners is Peter Jackson, buddy.
Oh, it's Peter Jackson. You're right.
Zemeckis produced it, though. I think that's probably there's a connection there.
Interesting.
Very, very rare that I one up Rye on a director.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's close this jaw box. Matt, we were going to review. I always am looking at the new movies coming out, and we were going to review two movies this week. I had written them down as possibly doing The Five Bloods, and then a second review was going to be the Disney family possible masterpiece, Artemis Fowl, I think is how you say it.
Right.
And I was going to watch this. It came out last Friday. I never like to look at reviews beforehand, but just going through my Twitter feed and being friends with, a lot of people that we have here on Cinemajaw all the time, I saw people already just absolutely trashing it in such a bad manner that I said, I'm not even going to waste my time watching this movie. But luckily, Hammervision has a review for us. John, you saw this Artemis Fowl. Give us your take.
I've made a huge mistake in my life at this point, spending 90 minutes on that. That movie is based on a popular book series. It was supposed to come out in August, and then they pushed it to May, and then COVID happened, and they kicked it to Disney+. I don't know how that movie could have appeared in theaters and not gotten reamed over the coals, because it would have bombed completely. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh, who is not really a good director, I don't think. I mean, maybe early on, like his Shakespeare stuff is good, but the first Thor isn't that good, and I haven't been impressed with this stuff. But he directed it. It's a mess. They spent $125 million on it. The effects are terrible.
Jesus.
It reminded me of M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender in terms of taking what I guess is a beloved property. I've never read the books, and I never will after seeing the movie, but it gets everything so wrong. It muddles whatever story it had. At any given point, you can be watching it and not understanding anything that's happening on screen. Not one thing. None of it makes any sense. It's all noise and garish effects. And then Josh Gad plays a character who can bring his jaw like 3 feet down to the ground, and then he like uses farts to power through the ground. Like it's like a propeller while he like munches dirt to like hole through things. I couldn't tell you. Judi Dench is in it, and between this and like Cats, and I don't know what she's doing with her late in life career. I mean, it's just sad. It's terrible.
Wow.
Skip it. Don't watch it, even if it's free.
How many jaws here? Does it register a half jaw or 0 jaws, or where are we at?
I give it 1 jaw. I usually don't go below 1, but I don't begrudge anybody who would give it 0.
Wow.
I think I'll take that advice, and I think I'll just skip that one, Matt K.
Would like a 4-year-old like this movie, John? Or is it not even something a 4-year-old would like?
I don't even think a 4-year-old would understand, would get it. I mean, they would, they're not going to be as judgmental, but I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
They could have taken it or leave it. They weren't impressed at all.
There you have it, folks.
On to some Hollywood headlines, Matt K.
The Oscars, it's official, guys. Oscars postponed 2 months because of the COVID pandemic.
I hate this. I really don't even understand the idea of why they would postpone it. And I'm not saying that because I don't understand there's a pandemic going on, but there are plenty of movies being released, and there's going to be more on the second half of the year. If they would have kept it the same, all that happens is the ones that are postponed will be competing for the following year's Oscars. No need to postpone it 2 months. It's already confusing how late in the year the Oscars are for celebrating a calendar year. I'm against this move. I don't like it at all.
Well, what you're not considering is the fact that they want the Oscars to retain some of that grandiose celebration that it embodies. Like, they're not going to be able to put that many stars in one room safely. So they want to kick it out a couple months just to give them a little bit of a buffer into the next year, and hopefully the pandemic will have calmed down. Frankly, I don't know if it will have. I think we're going to see a radically transformed Oscars in 2021 next year. They may just be virtual. That's my prediction.
Well, it's weird too, because you're adding like 4 months to the eligibility requirement, right? So what happens when critics do their best of year-end lists? That can usually have some sway over what people perceive as an Oscar movie. Maybe not a ton, but it can lift up smaller flicks. And I don't think critics are going to change their year-end designations to wait until like February or March for the additional 2 months that the Oscars are giving.
No, because then we're going to be thrown off next year as well. And then where does it end? I agree with you on that.
And then does it shorten the following year's Oscars, 2 Oscars from now? Because this one was postponed 4 years, does that mean the eligibility for the next Oscars is only 8 months? I just don't like the whole thing.
I agree with you on that point. I think having the actual party, celebration, presentation, the telecast with all those people in one room, go ahead and postpone that. Don't add months of eligibility to the calendar. That just screws everything up. 100%.
All right, on to our next headline here. Alien 5 in the works, and reportedly it's going to be all about Sigourney Weaver's Ripley. You excited about an Alien 5, Matt?
Oh, hell yeah, I am. Hell yeah. Especially if it's about Ripley, and especially if Sigourney Weaver is actually going to be Ripley, then yes. I don't know. I can't remember in the last canon film if Ripley was alive or dead, but I'm sure they'll figure out a way to bring her back or time travel and retcon that right up. So yeah, man, I'm a huge fan of the series, huge fan of Sigourney Weaver's Ripley. Why not? John, what do you think?
I guess I'll believe it when I see it. I feel like there's been a couple of Alien projects like in the works. Wasn't the Chappie District 9 director going to do one with Sigourney Weaver at some point, and that never happened? And then Ridley Scott it still wants to do. Is this different than the Prometheus?
Nope, that's canon. So that's all the same. Prometheus is in canon.
So is this going to be like a Prometheus Alien film or like a original Alien?
I think it would be more like the original Alien film. At least that's what I got from reading the article.
Okay. Of course I'm going to see it, but we can still complain about it.
And speaking of sequels that may have gone on too long, a new trailer dropped. Bill and Ted 3 is what I'm calling it, but it does have a subtitle in there. What's it called? Bill and Ted
Face the Music.
Face the Music. I am not looking forward to this at all. I I have to say, I was at one of the film festivals that the Music Box put on maybe a year or two ago. It was late night, like after the main screenings had been, and there was like a little party in that lounge area. God, do I miss the Music Box? Just talking about it here, really miss what I'm talking about, because you guys have all been there and know the atmosphere. And it's more, people are there, and a lot of people that I know, and we're talking about movies. But the Music Box was playing Bill and Ted on the big screen at midnight. And I said, well, I'll leave this fun gathering in the lounge area and I'll go check out Bill and Ted, Hadn't seen it in a long time. It'd be really something to see it on the big screen. And I'm sorry, it was not that good on the big screen, or that nostalgia factor. It was like, it was there, but not so much like you would be seeing, say, like E.T. or something magical on the big screen. It was like there were some laughs in the crowd. And mind you, most people were a little tipsy from the party, but it was like, yeah, this series is done. I don't know what they're thinking with the third one. That's my opinion.
I'm on board for it. I'll say that. I think it's kind of a cross-generational thing. I can see a lot of parents taking their kids to it and saying, hey, this was cool back when I was younger, and the kids not getting it. It's an opportunity to do that. But the trailer didn't look good, and Keanu Reeves looks off in it. I don't know if it's his outfit, or my buddy mentioned to me, like, back in the day, Keanu Reeves wasn't a good actor. Like, when he was playing Ted, he was just, that was him. And now he's kind of gotten some chops over the years, and to see him try to fit that character back on, it just seems a disconnect. There's something weird there that I'm not quite feeling.
Well, this is amazing, because I was going to say almost the exact same thing that you are, John. It's amazing that Keanu Reeves, who has been accused at times of being a time traveler because the man has not aged, right? Suddenly, I mean, a time traveler in real life, not just in the Bill and Ted movies. Suddenly, he looks like crap. How the hell does Alex Winter look better than Keanu Reeves in this trailer? I don't know, but he does, and I can pinpoint it. It's the beard. He shaved his beard off, and he just looks weird without the beard. So Keanu, I think Ted at this point in his life could have a beard. So if they're still like doing pickups and reshoots, put the beard back on, dude. It's just disturbing without it. You look like Severus Snape up there, man. And the other thing, right? I totally disagree with you, Ryan, about the series being good. I think it really hit its stride with the Bogus Journey. The Excellent Adventure was good, but the Bogus
really hit their stride.
Right. They were like, hey, fellas, we're onto something here. Let's perfect this. And they did. They got it just right. And I'm totally on board for another adventure with Bill and Ted. But, man, the Keanu-sance might be over. I think this is a very risky move for Keanu Reeves right now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Whew. All right. Enough Hollywood headlines, Matt. Let's play some trivia. Oh, do I love this music, Matt. It's trivia time. Woo! All right, it works like this. John Hammerle, he's our guest. He gets to choose if he wants to go first. Let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any question, you get one rescue. Rescue me, Ryan. I'll give you a clue. Again, in honor of the Five Bloods, in which they find these gold bars, we are playing gold movie trivia. John, what do you want to do?
I love gold.
Damn it, you beat me to it.
Matt, you can go first.
All right.
Question number one, Matt K. Name the actor who starred as John Thornton, a man looking for gold, in this year's Call of the Wild adaptation.
Oh. It threw me for a second there. That was Harrison Ford.
That was Harrison Ford. That is correct. 1-0, Matt K. Question two over to John Hammerle. John, Mayor Goldie Wilson in Back to the Future is the mayor of what town?
That would be Hill Valley.
That is correct. 1-1, Goldie Wilson. What a mayor.
Good question, Ryan.
That was a good question.
Very clever.
Thank you. 1-1, question three, back over to Matt K. Matt, name the actress who has starred in Bird on a Wire, Snatched, and House Sitter.
Goldie Hawn.
Wow. Gold movie trivia was the big tip-off there.
Big fan of Goldie.
2-1, Matt K. Keep it perfect here, John. Question 4 is over to you. Pierce Brosnan's first James Bond movie was 1995's GoldenEye. Name his last Bond film that came out in 2002.
Yes. GoldenEye had a great Nintendo 64 game, too, with it. But his last movie was the Madonna-themed Die Another Day.
Yes. True story, I have not seen that one.
It's
Worth checking out? No.
There was a reason why it was his last one, I think.
They went downhill fast, but I think it's all the Bond movies are special in their own way.
Everybody's perfect. Speaking about special, Matt here. Everybody, 2-2. Question 5 over to you. The 2008 masterpiece, Fool's Gold, starred Matthew McConaughey and this actress.
Matthew McConaughey and
Fool's Gold.
Mm-hmm. Fools has nothing to do with the actress, though. You really put the emphasis on fools, like that was a hint.
Well, I was thinking, what a title of a movie. You want to go see that new Matthew McConaughey movie, Fool's Gold?
Yeah, so it's one of these like adventure rom-coms where Matthew McConaughey was still the shirtless wonder, as you like to call him, Ryan.
He was still the shirtless wonder at this time.
Bare-chested with a golden tan.
Possible cowboy hat on.
Yep. It was oh my god, I can see her face. It's Penelope Cruz.
Incorrect. John, you got a chance for a steal and take a huge lead here.
I do know this one. It was a reteam of the How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days duo of McConaughey and Kate Hudson.
Wow. Yes, that is correct.
Speaking
Goldie's
of Goldie
daughter,
Hawn, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look at this. What a connection. It's 3-2 now, John. And question 6, over to John. What a swing of events here. Early on in the movie, John Carter, speaking of masterpieces here, early on in the movie, John Carter, the title character finds Spider Cave of gold in Arizona. Who played John Carter in the 2012 film?
Oh, what is his name? It's Tim Riggins from Friday Night Lights, and it was he was in Battleship. Matt, you're going to be able to steal this one from me. I'm having trouble.
He doesn't know this one either.
I know exactly who he is.
You do have a lifeline if you need it.
I'll take it.
All right. Your clue is tailor-made for you.
Taylor Kitsch.
There it is. Wow. Big clue.
I wouldn't have gotten it even with the clue. I would have said Taylor Swift.
Close.
It is 4-2, and there's 2 questions left. Matt needs to get them both right here. Matt, question 7 is over to you. In the 2016 film, The Accountant, Ben Affleck plays the accountant who has a drawer full of gold bars. Which actress co-starred as Dana Cummings in the movie?
What's interesting about this question is we once did a fall movie preview episode, which for my money, John Hammerle might have been the guest on. And I put The Accountant as my number 1 most anticipated film of the fall, and I never saw it. So who is the female co-star in The Accountant is the thrust of this question. It's question number 7. I need them both. Rescue me, Ryan.
Wow, rescue me, Ryan. Initials AK, also in Up in the Air.
Anna Kendrick.
That is correct, yes. 4-3. We need this last question, John, to have a walk-off win for sure. Question 8 to John, here we go. The movie The Italian Job is about a gold heist. Mark Wahlberg played Charlie in the 2003 remake, but who played the lead in the 1969 original film?
I've never seen the 1969 film, but I can picture the poster or the DVD cover art, and I believe it's Michael Caine.
And that's a winner for John Hammerle. Yes. He wins this one 5-3. Can we get a virtual?
Yeah, virtual fist bump. Here you go.
Demolition
Good job,
Man.
man.
High five.
Yeah, the ghost high five.
If it came down to a jawbreaker, this question would have been over to John Hammerle. Better James Bond movie, GoldenEye or Goldfinger?
Most people will say Goldfinger, but I always say the first Bond movie you see in your life is the one you kind of attach to and have affection for. And GoldenEye was the first Bond movie I ever saw. So I'm going to say GoldenEye.
That is incorrect. It is Goldfinger.
Of course it's Goldfinger. This isn't better video game. It's better.
I will say GoldenEye is so enhanced with that video game. And we're obviously around the same age that would have been playing that when it was quite popular. And God, we played the heck out of that GoldenEye video
You know what,
game.
though? GoldenEye is also a really good Bond movie. It really is. But,
Yeah. The real jawbreaker was this, Age of Michael Caine, closest to. Matt, you got to guess.
I mean, Jesus Christ. I think he might be 150 years old at this point.
We'll lock him in at 150.
No, hang on. I'll give you a realistic guess. He's well into his 80s. I would say 87 years old.
Lock him in at 87. John, do you got a guess?
I think that's right. I think I'm going to go 84.
Matt nailed it. He's 87 years old. Hit it on the dot. Yeah.
Good job, Matt.
I tell you, I missed my calling. I could have been a carny.
You know those ages, man.
I don't know how, but I seem to. Yeah.
Well, it brings us to the end of a great Jaw. And first and foremost, we got to thank our guest, John. Thanks for coming on Cinemajaw, buddy.
Always a pleasure, guys. It's a ton of fun.
I really appreciate it, man.
Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yes, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get great sponsors like them.
If you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
And while you're at it, click subscribe. One extra button for you helps us out tremendously. Also, we're on Patreon at patreon.com/Cinemajaw.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt Kay.
And keep on jawing about the movies.